Okay, so today we have Mikey Taylor here from, I don't want to say it wrong, Tarzana.
Southern California.
Southern
Thousand
California.
Oaks is the city.
And you have a pretty impressive resume, especially for you're 40 years old now, right? You were a pro skater at the age of, was it 19?
I turned pro around 19.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You did that for 10 plus years, a little over a decade. Then you sold a brewery for $35 million, even more impressive. And now you are the president of a real estate company managing over $200 million in real estate. So I would say you're an overachiever.
It's been fun so far. Like some things work, some things don't. We just get to highlight the wins for now. So
And you also have your podcast.
we have a podcast.
So what is the name of your podcast?
It's called Life with Mikey.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, the idea of the podcast was just, I was a skater and then the brewery and then the private equity firm. And I'm a council member for my city as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, these are all the things in my life. Let's rip at it. So we have guests like, as far as the niche or the genre, it's a little bit all over the place.
We've kind of landed like that too.
Yeah, but it's fun. You get to meet people. You get to learn new things. You
had
get
some
some
really cool
cross-pollination.
people.
Yeah.
Well, that's why Sean wanted to do it. He's like, the amount of contacts that you can make from this while educating people at the same time, he feels the education system has failed us.
Right.
So he's like, this is a great way for people to learn. We talk a lot about real estate, so we'll really go in on the real estate and hear what you do there. But I want to take it back to how you were as a kid. I see commonality with a lot of people who are entrepreneurs
Right.
and what they were like as children. So I want to hear, what were you like as a kid? What were you into? What were your parents like?
I learned this stuff later on, but growing up, I thought I was just like a normal kid. I rode bikes, I played hockey, I skateboarded, I surfed. But there was something about me that I picked up later, which was when I got into something, I got all the way in. So like I'm a very obsessive personality. But everything I did was
Sounds familiar.
it's the entrepreneurial curse. But everything I did was short-lived. It was like I'd get into bikes, I would get all into bikes, and then a year later I'd be bored. I get into hockey, I'm all in for a couple of years, and then I'd be bored. Skateboarding was the first thing that it never let up for whatever reason. And so when I started, I became obsessed with it. It almost became like an identity. And then 14 years later, I'm like, dang, I'm still traveling the world doing this. So obsessive personality, people person, very, very competitive, extremely competitive. But nothing like out of the box or out of the ordinary. I thought I was just like a normal SoCal kid.
So how did you get into pro skateboarding?
Pro skateboarding, actually, I never wanted to be pro, believe it or not. Like, for me, I found something that I love doing. And then, 16, I started getting pressure from my parents to get a job, and I didn't want to work. I wanted to keep skating, like naturally.
I know, like all of this stuff is really impressive for a skateboarder.
That's right.
And a smoking pot and
No, I was actually like, I think the thing about the obsessiveness and the competitiveness, like when I do something, I all the way do it. I don't like do anything else. It's nuke or nothing with me. And so when I was skating, that was it. 16 years old, don't care about girls, don't care about drugs, don't care about partying, skateboarding only, right? The problem is when my parents were like, hey, you guys start making some money. And so I tried to figure out a solution to making money without getting a job. So I had this idea that I could convince companies to give me free products, like sponsorships, right? And so I basically looked at my parents. I was like, Mom, Dad, if I get companies to give me free stuff, I then don't have to pay for any of my clothes, none of my shoes, none of my skateboards, and I'll have some extra stuff that I could sell to the other skaters.
there you go.
That'll be my money.
That's when the hustle came in.
Yes, but I just thought that was like what I would do to not work, right? I didn't think I was an entrepreneur. I just thought, here's the
More time
hack.
to skate, yeah.
And so my parents, I think, thought it was so nuts that they were like, yeah, go for it. And so there was this kid in town that had a camera, and I convinced him to film like this little promo video of me. And then I went through the magazine one day, and anyone who had an address in their ad, right? So you maybe see an ad from, let's say, Girl Skateboards.
Okay.
And every once in a while, a company would put the address to their actual facility. And if they put an address, they got a tape from me. So I sent those tapes out. I sent 40 of them out, and I got no callbacks. Just crickets.
This is before there was like influencers.
There's
But this
no-
is also before you were pro, or
This is 98. This is way before social media. I'm just a kid. I'm a sophomore in high school, right? And so then I basically convinced the filmer that like we needed to make another video, and we made another 2-minute video. I did the same process, sent it to 40 companies.
I mean, for a 16-year-old to try again after you got not rejected, but just radio silence is pretty amazing.
I hate losing. I do not like losing. As a personality trait, don't
yeah,
like it.
you're in my boat. I don't
And
like
so
that.
I sent more videos out, and this time 3 companies called me. And then I started getting free stuff, and then I started selling it to the skaters.
So this is the second attempt to the same companies again? You're just a fresh new
anyone
people.
Anyone who had an address, they were getting another tape. And so then at that point, I had a shoe sponsor, I had a clothing sponsor, and I had a skateboard sponsor.
Just free products, not getting paid yet.
Free products only. But like, for example, the skateboard company was sending me 8 new boards a month.
Yeah.
And I was using 3 or 4.
And then selling the rest.
Yeah, so $30 a pop. Okay, here's a couple $100. Here we go. Some clothes. And so that's how I floated it until my senior year. And then that's when it got a little real.
So what happened in your senior year? What changed things?
So high school, I started getting ads in the magazine. So the sponsor started promoting me. I guess I technically became amateur. And when I graduated, my parents looked at me and went, "Where are you going to school?" And, to add more color to it, my entire junior high and high school kind of experience, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Like, told my parents I'm going to be an attorney.
So they're like, great.
Yeah, so when they're like, you're not going to go to school, you're going to skateboard. And skateboarding was tiny. They panicked. Mom was very uncomfortable with it. And so...
what do your parents do for work?
My dad's a photographer, wedding photographer.
Okay.
And then my mom was an artist, painted. And then when she had us, she stepped away from painting, just raised kind of three kids full time, and then moved into interior design afterward.
So where did the attorney thing come from? Did you have an uncle or someone?
No, I loved arguing. I was like a kid, loved arguing. I was like, gosh, I love this too much. Maybe I should be an
Did you
attorney.
have one of those, we had a team called the DECA team in high school where you could basically was just get on the stage and argue with each other?
Didn't do it. Like my high school career is non-existent. I was just skating, right? Skateboarding kind of detoured me pretty heavily from wanting to do anything else. Like I kind of became like a hermit. Or not a hermit, but I was involved with the skaters and the skaters only. There's zero life outside of that. And then, I ended up, turning pro and traveling the world. And then that became my first career.
How do you turn pro in skateboarding? You just win a couple tournaments and then you qualify?
How it works in skateboarding, you officially turn pro when your board sponsor makes a board with your name on it.
Oh, okay.
So once basically a company has the rights to sell your name, you officially become pro. So that happened in 2002 for me.
And then when you become pro, does that mean anything going forward you have to get paid for, or it's just kind of an understanding that if
you cannot get paid. Depends how savvy you are or how much demand you have. But for me at that point, and we're talking a little bit, I was making $800 a month.
So when they put your name on a board, is there some kind of royalty that you get for every board sold? How does that work?
It's typically $2 a board. So
what do the boards cost?
Well, back then they were like $49.
Okay,
now they're
still
about
pretty good.
$60. Yeah, but you got to put up numbers, right?
Okay.
Like if you're
Yeah,
looking
$2, you have to sell a lot of boards.
you got to sell a lot of boards, right? Where skaters really make money, and it's very rare for a skater to have this, is for a shoe. Because when you have a shoe, you get multiple sizes, multiple colorways. Your ability to put up units is pretty big. And so when I got my first shoe, that's when I started making decent money.
What brand was the shoe company with?
My first shoe was with a shoe company called DVS.
Okay.
And then the next shoe I had was with a company called Etnies. And then the last one was a company called DC. They were owned by
I know
Quicksilver.
DC.
Yeah,
the
they were
stars,
larger.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah. So that was, it was wild. But that
So when
was
you first
it.
started doing this, who was helping you with the contracts? Are there contracts on
I was
that?
doing them all myself.
So just
Negotiating them.
attorney.
I had an attorney. Yeah. So basically, to kind of add more to it, when my parents freaked out about me being a pro skateboarder or trying to be a pro skateboarder, one thing they really wanted me to do that try to give them some comfort in me being attempting to be a pro skateboarder was having financial help. And so my parents connected me with a financial advisor. I was making no money. It made no sense.
You're like, let me put my $10 in savings, please.
I was making $800 a month. And most financial advisors, there's a lot of them, you don't have $1 million of AUM, they're not touching you, right? For me, thankfully, this guy was like, yeah, I'll help you. And he almost became my mentor, right? And then in that, when I would get into things like I have a contract, he was the one that basically plugged me in with the attorney to go over it.
Okay.
But I remember even him saying who's negotiating your deals? And I'm like, I'm doing it. And he's like, why? And I'm like,
I've done that before.
So-
For anyone new to anything
Yes.
contract related, don't ever try to do that yourself.
So here was my thought, and I changed on it. But my original thought as a cocky, 19-year-old was, why am I going to pay somebody else to negotiate a deal that I can negotiate better than them, right? Now, the challenge is I'm pretty good at negotiating. But at this point in my life, it's shift. It's more a time thing. Like I don't even want the time.
It's not even the times, it's just understanding the terms and what language should be in there and protecting you.
Well, that's on the back end, right?
Yeah.
Like when I say like I would negotiate it, we would negotiate really like the front end terms of
Just the
of
LOI or
income,
something.
income base, my potential earnings, royalty, all the guts to it. Don't go near. Let an attorney do that. But for me, like the original ask, how much are you going to pay me and what's my potential upside? That dynamic, I was doing that and I liked it.
But now your team just knows exactly what you expect, and they just run the final numbers after they've negotiated for you, whatever deal you have, and then you
Well,
say yes
now
or no.
what I found is like how it usually works now, if I'm talking to somebody, like we'll try to get to some like arrangement high level. And then I'll just say, dude, let's let the attorneys, let them work it out. The reason why it's easy to get into it's easy to challenge a relationship during negotiations. And I would rather have someone from my team do that and me maintain a relationship with maybe a certain figure or something like that.
Because of no emotions.
Yeah, cut the emotion out. Like, look, I want to do something with you. Let's let them figure it out. If they don't figure it out, all good. It at least helps me to go, okay, are we really going to like spend time arguing over like an extra, pick the number,
Any big lessons learned
from negotiating?
in the pro, or the pro world of skateboarding? Anything that you would have, any regrets or?
Well, yeah. The most important thing I ever learned about negotiating, you can't negotiate if you're not completely in a position to walk away. If you're not going to walk away from the deal and you're not 100% willing to, you will never be a good negotiator. That was something I learned. From skateboarding, I think the most valuable lesson I learned was more around controlling fear, probably. Because skateboarding is so dangerous. And, if you mess up, it's not only getting hurt. You could get like all the way expired. And so we have to get really good at kind of taking what's in front of us, which is fear, and kind of, shifting it to the side of us so that it's still there, but it's not stopping us from accomplishing what we're trying to do. That came from skateboarding, and that became very valuable then moving into, not just business, but when you start using other people's money to create business, that's a new added weight of responsibility, which can turn into a really heavy fear element. I don't know if I would have been able to do that if it didn't start with learning how to manage it from skating.
How many
He's
years?
really good with that. I'm not good with taking other people's money. I've always done everything myself, but you do. You have a lot of.
Not anymore. I don't do it anymore.
But you have in the past.
I
You've
have.
taken.
I don't love it either. I just like to make my own decisions, and I don't want to. If a deal doesn't go as good as I planned, I'd just rather it be on me and not have to go explain it to somebody.
Puts a whole other layer
That's
of
right.
pressure on it.
There's pros and cons to both, right? There really is. My whole thing has always been, I think my vision is always bigger than what I can do alone.
Yep.
And how my personality works, when I see where I want to go, I just want to get there. And I don't want to take the next 30 years to do it. And, that means we're doing it together. That means people are coming in.
You think identically. I think I'm like, how do I get there the fastest? How am I going to do it in the shortest amount of time? I'm not going to wait 30 years for something to happen.
Right.
And he's also learned, like, there's anybody on your team that's slowing you down. You've never let somebody go or separated from somebody too soon.
Yeah.
If they're not on the same mind path as you. And him and I have struggles with this too, because he wants to go balls to the wall. I'm like, no, it's got to be perfect. And he's like, no, we're going fast.
Yeah.
Get on the car, get off, let's go. We're going.
Yeah.
How many years did it take you to start making real money before? So you're making $800 a month, and then how many years went by before you actually made like decent money?
Good
I guess
question.
Back then.
So let's see, 800 turned to like 2,500, turned to like 50 grand. I think when I was 22 when I was 23, I got my first royalty check for a shoe. This is actually a good story. It's worth telling. So at this point, I'm making $100 grand a year is my base, right? For a skater
And when you're skating, you think it's the best thing in the world.
I'm like on top of the world.
For any 23, 24-year-old, that's fucking
I was
fantastic.
To do what you love to
I was
do. and-
living life, right?
So was the royalty like much higher, like percentage-wise on that shoe?
So 100 grand is my base,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And at this point, like, I bought my first house. I haven't even got a royalty yet. Bought my first house, first time being out of my parents' house, all my friends living with me.
I meant to ask you, were you at your parents' house this whole time? Because I
So
think
I-
that's what, in the beginning, what makes a lot of people successful, so they don't have a lot of like overhead.
Yeah, so basically where I started doing damage, even when I was making like 50, 60 grand a year, dude, I was stacking all of it, right? Because I was living at my parents'
Great.
house. I had a paid off car. It was like a Chevy Cavalier. And everything
like
I
your
was
story.
doing was, I got free product. And when I traveled, it was paid for by the company.
Yeah, it's the best thing to do when you're.
So
young-
I
when
saved
you're
a
young
lot
kid,
of money. Yeah, I was in no rush to move out. Then I bought the house in 2005, and then it became the skate house, right? And at this point, I had gotten an offer from another shoe company, and I was really considering leaving. I was using the shoe company as leverage to get more out of the deal. And at that time, the company would be sending me these new contracts every 3 days, right? Show up on my doorstep in the manila folder, right? From who's the service, DHL or whatever, right? I was so annoyed throwing them, right? Well, I must have thrown a royalty check in my living room the same way I was throwing the contracts, right? Fast forward 6 months, and we're having a party at my house, right? People over, everybody's hanging out. And my buddy goes, Mikey, look what I found underneath the couch. Pulls out this manila folder, right? I'm like, I'll just go throw that thing away. He's like, what is it? I'm like, it's a contract, but I had already renewed my deal, right? It's a contract, just like, get rid of it. And he opens it up, and it's 2 checks. He goes, Mikey, there's 2 checks, right? I'm like, for real? And I look at them, right? One's 25 G's. I'm like, holy smokes, the other's 65 G's, right?
Like the biggest 2 checks you've ever seen in your whole life, and they were under your couch.
Right? And these are, you get paid quarterly on your shoes.
So when you weren't looking for a check, you weren't like calling saying,
I had never got a royalty check before. This is my first one, and I almost threw it away, right? So
you weren't in contact with them to see what sales were, or they just didn't have like the updates with you monthly to let you know?
No analytics or anything.
This was the Wild West back then. A Wild West. So that was my first royalty check. So when I got my first shoe, I started making pretty good money for about 8 months, and then I ended up quitting. And then I probably started making, probably for the next 4 years, maybe 150. And then the last 4 years of my career, I had a shoe that just went bonkers.
So
it
why
was
did
a
you
very
quit
good selling shoe.
Making that much money so young? What made you want to quit after less than a year?
And then how does it work with the royalty stuff if you end up quitting?
Really good question. So when I got my first shoe, it was the first time that I got to be like really involved, from design, seeing samples. Once sample was good to go. This is now your world, right? And getting ready to launch, going through the marketing,
I was actually going to ask
sales.
how that was, or is it private label? Like they were just Jessica Simpson. They say, "Here's the shoes we have. Do you like them? Yes. If so, put your name on it."
Start to finish, sat with the designer. What do you want to do?
awesome.
And we draw it up, and then we tweak it, and then we get our first sample, and then all the way to
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved that process. I fell in love with it. And so after, I kind of realized that I wanted more than just like being a pro skateboarder. Like I wanted to be involved in like the business aspect of it. And so I went to that company with this proposal that I would be like a pro skateboarder, but I also wanted to be involved in like the team and brand management. And the president of the firm, I set up this big meeting. President of the firm had my pitch, right? And he looked at me and he goes, "Bro, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Just go skateboard." And I left the meeting going, okay, this is over.
Yeah.
And so I got an offer to basically get involved with a team that needed basically a refresh. So I was going to come on, help them rebuild their team, help them rebuild their marketing, and be a skater. So that's why I left.
Was it the same amount of money to be able to move over to that?
It was a little bit more
Okay.
from a base, but my shoe was selling good on the last one. So I was running a big risk that my next shoe wasn't going to perform, and my next shoe didn't perform. So I probably had more earning potential now, in hindsight with the first company, but it was the right move because that second company, I never would have started the brewery if I wouldn't have tried to build a skate program with Etnies.
So now let's talk about the brewery. I want to know how much money you had saved up, because I know you're hoarding all your cash at this point, but you have a house and you're partying. You got the hype house, like the TikTok hype house now with all the skateboarders.
With the kids
before there was
and
a hype
bubble
house.
bat, yep.
So were you able to still save at that point, or at least a little bit?
At this point, I was saving a lot still. It didn't get hard to save until I started having kids, right? But I lived very frugal almost my entire career. When I went to the new shoe company to try to build out this new team, I had like zero leadership skills. I didn't realize how poor I was with working with the team. So I came in very militant, right? We have to do this.
Did you want everybody to work as hard and as...
My bar was too high. Yeah, and that's something I had to learn is my bar is naturally higher than others.
Same.
And I would hold people to my standard. And it's actually, you don't get a lot done that way. I had to learn that.
A lot of micromanaging.
Yeah, too much of it.
A lot of turnover.
Correct. And so, but the thing is, at this point, this isn't my company, right? I'm basically self-contracted as a pro skateboarder and have some like other deal with them, but this is not mine. And to kind of add to it, most skaters are not doing what I was doing. Most skaters just skateboard.
Yeah.
And so I was going into these design meetings and I'd see shoes. I'm like seriously like throwing shoes in the trash. I mean, it was violent. And the
Sounds like Devil Wears Prada.
it was bad. Yeah, it was bad. I don't know, all the way. Like if you worked there during that time, I'm sorry. But anyway, the president of the company called me and was like, dude, you need to chill out. Like this isn't working. And thank God I wasn't at a point of really understanding what he was saying, because all I interpreted that as, this is not my company. These people will always view me as a skater. And the only way I'm going to be able to do this is if I start my own company. And then that's what led to me starting the brewery.
But go ahead.
Why a brewery from skateboarding? And
It was just a fluke, like a God-given idea at the perfect timing. I was with a friend of mine who was in the surf industry, and we were down shooting a film together, and we were talking about business, and we just got on the topic of like, why does everyone in our world start the same companies? Like we always create skateboard companies or clothing brands, accessory brands. And so that conversation led to us throwing out ideas of things that hadn't been done in our world. And he looks at me and goes, dude, like, what about beer? Like beer would be wild. And I looked at him and I was blown away. I was like, bro, we got to do beer. Like, let's freaking do this. And this was at the time where energy drinks was like running wild.
Yep.
Well, I was about to say you're early too, because now, I mean, it's just commonplace if somebody has some type of influence or sponsorship. I mean, they have an energy drink company or a beer company or any kind of liquor company is all super popular.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I don't think it was at all.
This was perfect time. This was 2011. There's no influencer. There was no ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just went for it. No experience. Didn't have enough money to start it ourselves. Just like naive kids, like believing that they could accomplish anything.
So how did you market it?
So we had to go raise money. So we raised about $2.5 million from like friends and family, anyone who would give us money. And then when we basically, we raised money, we got the place that we were gonna brew the beer out of. Got how long was the lease? 5 years, 6-year lease. And then we were looking at the marketing plan. I think we had like $60,000 allocated for our marketing budget, right? And I remember us looking at each other going, it's a lot of money. Like we could use that money somewhere else. Like we didn't really.
You didn't understand the importance of that kickstarting your whole brand.
Nope. And so my partner actually said something brilliant. We didn't really realize the magnitude of it until we launched it. He was like, dude, Paul, which is one of our founders, a lot of our investors are skaters and surfers and snowboarders. They're all on Instagram. Like, what if we just promoted on Instagram?
So Instagram was brand new.
Brand new.
Because 2014 is when I joined and only been around for about 2 years.
Brand new.
So what year was the brewery? 2011, you said?
We started it in 2011. This
Same year I
is when
started
like
mine,
Instagram was like the photographers, the models, and the skaters
Just
were on the
photos.
explore page. Like it was early. And so I was like, dang, maybe we could do it.
I remember my friend saying, hurry up, get your name, Gentry. You'll be able to get Gentry if you do it right now. And it was already taken. I was like, damn it, because I didn't get on soon enough. But yeah, I remember it was just, you were swiping the little Polaroid filter on everything.
That's right. That's right. So that's how we launched it. We launched it on Instagram. You couldn't even put videos up at this point. And then it just went nuts.
So all three of so there's 3 founders, sounds like.
I have 2. Yeah, there were 3 founders total. Paul
all
and Josh.
Skateboarders.
Paul was a skateboarder. Josh was a surfer.
So how did you guys learn how to formulate beer? Was this a YouTube thing? Were y'all reading books?
No, we basically
trial and error, mom's kitchen.
No, hiring. We actually we got a little bit of guidance in the beginning that nobody was going to give us money without a business plan. And so when we were forced to build a business plan, it kind of forced us to figure out how we were actually going to do this and who like the key hires and people were going to be. And then once we had the money, then we just started bringing people in. And so when we launched it, it was about a team of maybe 8. So we had our head brewer, we had our, the guy who's going to oversee the entire brewery, our COO. We had a sales guy, we had our CFO, and then we just went for it.
So that's why you needed the full $2+ million to
get
the people staffed up.
The equipment was really expensive.
Yeah, the one we introduced you to up there, her husband owns a brewery.
Yeah,
so
it's not a cheap industry. Yeah, so that's what it was for.
They have 2 locations already. They're doing great, but all that.
He works 18 hours a day.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
And so we ran that for about 3.5 years.
How did you get your first distributor?
That's what I was going to ask is how did you get distribution back then?
Okay.
Was it like slot fees or?
So our idea was kind of twofold. One, at that time, craft beer was really starting to make like strides into the mainstream. But the way they were doing it was like craft beer is a specialty beer. Like you brew high alcohol, like the hops is very important. And, you know, think about like if you drink like a double IPA, you're having one double IPA, you're smoked. That's all you're having, right? For us, we came from skateboarding. It's Coors, Budweiser, Pabst, right? It's easy to drink beers. And so we had basically the idea that we were going to create we called them sessionable beers, right? If we were going to have a double IPA, it was going to be easy to drink. If we had an IPA, it was going to be easy to drink, which was very counterculture to the beer industry. And then the second part we were going to do is in our marketing, right? No one marketed in craft beer at all. And so our idea was that we were going to basically market the investors as ambassadors. We were going to tell their story, and we weren't going to really mention beer at all. It was going to be like Paul Rodriguez video on his view of California.
And where were you putting these videos?
All on Instagram. Okay.
So what year was that? Because I'm trying to think of what year.
2012 is when we launched the business.
But was it a photo? Because it wasn't a video yet.
No, right when we launched the brewery is right when videos opened.
Okay.
So we had like our YouTube page, but we were doing the videos on Instagram.
They must have already had. I know they didn't have reels until like 2020.
No, this was like
or whatever,
no. There was a year where you were able to get videos on before Instagram actually had the ability to upload a video. Right.
Oh.
You had to like get one of these like Square Ready apps or something like that. Right. And so we started putting it on there.
So ahead of your time because everybody's watching. They're like, what is this? A video.
We were perfect timing. And so to answer your question, how we got distribution, we ended up bringing our concept with our videos prior to us even selling beer to these distributors. And my founder is actually one of the most brilliant negotiators I have ever seen. He just has the gift of selling. And so very quickly when we were with these distributions, they were trying to convince us on why we should be with them. Where that's not normally how it works for a brewery that has no beer.
So they were wanting you to like be solo with them.
They were
all
begging
to you
us,
guys.
begging us to distribute us.
But most beers, you said, don't do that. They sell to several different.
No. That's not what I mean. Most new breweries will go to a distributor and beg them to take them on.
Okay, got it. I thought they were trying to say like a non-compete, like go with us and go with us only.
You would have exclusivity in a certain region.
Okay.
Right? So we end up doing our first distribution deal with a company called Stone. And kind of the news spread like wildfire because Stone was a very respected distributor and we didn't even have beer at that point. So everyone's going, who is this company?
So you sold them without them tasting it.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
We did.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Sold them a dream.
Yeah. And so
were y'all still setting up your equipment at this point? Were you still?
We were setting up our equipment. Exactly right.
So how much longer?
So did you have POs and everything and they're just, as soon as you made it, it just went straight
You're like,
to
we're
them?
just selling out fast. You have to wait.
It was insane. We had the perfect storm of creating all the hype prior to product. And then once it was loose, everybody wanted it. Like we had 3.5 years of demand being so far above supply that we did 4 capital raises to grow. And every time we would grow, the demand would just out jump where we were. So we just never could keep up.
So you couldn't even forecast.
What's the margins in craft beer, I guess? Well, I guess probably different now, but back then,
I don't know what it is now. There's not a lot of margin in anything other than selling beer straight from your tap room. Like the tap room is where you have big margin.
So selling to a distributor, I mean, it's 15% or what?
I don't even remember actually what the percentage was, but yeah, I would probably call it around there.
Yeah.
That's about how ours is with wholesale.
It wasn't big. It was really small, but like you brew the beer and then sell it straight out of the tap room, it was through the roof. It was great.
So immediately when you opened and you bought all the equipment, you had a tap room right there and you had one location to start.
Right.
How long before you opened a second location or expanded what you had?
So we had something similar to what you guys did. We got like the first 8,000 feet. And then behind us was maybe, let's call it another 90,000 feet. And it was like a bunch of different, retailers. And it was like 6 months in, into the next, 6 months in, into the next. And before we knew it, we had the whole entire space. And so we did that. And then when Coors bought us, they started putting on some additional kind of taste rooms and kind of mini breweries. And then, I don't know, we were there for maybe...
Apart from that one little area. So did that
They
turn
still
into...
ran the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was additional.
But that was mostly your production facility? And then on top of that, you started having other like campuses?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
What did they pay for the company as far as like EBITDA numbers back then? Or
well, EBITDA, we didn't really have an EBITDA. We weren't making money.
Okay.
They bought it. God, what did they buy
Just
it for?
$72
$72 million or something like that. $75 million.
So how long were you in business when they
to 3.5 years.
Pretty incredible.
So that's not even much of a track
How
record.
much
Usually
money
when
did
look
you
back
raise?
2 or 3 years to see like proof of
insane.
sales.
Yeah.
Were y'all running a profit at any point during that? Or
I
this
never
is,
saw a
this is like a
profit.
tech company. They don't even give a shit what you're making.
This was like a
They're
tech
just like-
company, but there was something really like brilliant about it.
Is the brand.
Well, and we took a very different approach than other breweries, right? Like when we talk about breweries begging distributors to take them on, most breweries do the same thing with like just distributors throughout the nation. So what you would see is like somebody creates a brewery, they don't have a lot of brand recognition, they don't have a lot of demand. Someone in Nevada will take them. I'll send beer to Nevada. Somewhere in pick your state, we'll have them. I'll send beer to Milwaukee, right? For us, we decided that we were going to own California first. So we were going to create nationwide demand, and we were not leaving the state till we owned the state. And so when you now look at like, we got in a bidding war with Anheuser and Miller Coors. We had a couple other people looking at it. When they looked at our brand, they went, wait a minute. They want you all throughout America and in Europe and in Australia, and you're telling me you have straight vertical growth and you're destroying everyone and you haven't let it out of California? They went, yes, please. Because they knew that they could then open this thing up to just their distribution, and then it would just go correct.
What was the total raise?
We did, all in by the end of it, I think we were maybe $8 million in.
Oh,
That's not too bad.
Yeah,
No,
awesome.
it wasn't bad. But I mean,
Any
the
bank
point of
debt
us
or anything, or it was just all equity that
Say
you
that
sold?
again?
Any bank debt or anything? It was just all
out of that 8 million, I think there was like $1.2 million of debt. Yeah. But when we hit that point though, if we were not going to sell it and we were going to basically keep growing it, we needed probably another 30 to get to the next step.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where you can only go so far on your own. So you kind of had to at this point.
Well, for us, it was interesting. How we looked at it, it was like, okay, we've got a lot of money raised from people we love, friends and family, right? That's a different type of stress on your back.
Yeah, I don't know if I could.
And then we
deal
were
with that.
looking at an exit where it was basically going to be a 12x return for all of our investors
Oh, wow.
in 3.5 years.
Who gave the most?
So it was a lot of like, this was my pitch. Look, if you're listening here and you're thinking about raising money,
I'll take $5.
Here it is,
Pennies
right?
make dollars.
and remind me to finish on this,
Okay.
but when you have no experience, your friends and family are basically the only ones that are going to give you money because they at least know your character and kind of your drive, and they can look past the inexperience. But if you lose their money, you do life with these people, right? These are people you see at Christmas or Thanksgiving. So you want to be very careful that they're very aware that you could lose their money. And so our pitch to like my dad, like, look, my mom and dad invested, my in-laws, my aunt and uncle, it was like friends and family. And I basically said, I was like, look, Dad, don't give me anything you are not comfortable losing. Like, if you're okay losing it, okay, I'll take it. And I pitched that to everyone.
How much
It's
your parents
easy to
give
say
you?
that though when it,
I mean,
if
was
it
this-
actually did happen, it's like
Was this like
still-
$1,000 you were
dad-
getting from each person?
No,
You just
I
had
think
a
my
lot,
dad. No,
or-
I think my dad gave me 50.
That's a lot.
And what my dad said, he's like, "Look, man, it's your money anyway. This is like,
Yeah,
you know."
I'm not
I
going
was like,
to
"All right."
go to the grave with
So
it. Yeah.
it was like 50 here,
Here's your
25
inheritance.
here. We had some 100Ks here
That's
and there.
great.
And then
That's a
we had-
really big. I mean, your business plan must have been fucking badass to be able to get $100,000 from family members.
We did a really good job selling it. And what I would say is, like, my family, they like the personality we talk about, me being a kid, like they knew that when I go and do something, I do it all the way. And so was there a risk? Oh, of course. But I think they believed in me. And then my partner, Josh, very similar to my personality. Like we're it's not saying we can't fail. We're going to go through walls to get there though. So it was a good combo.
So these
And
people
then-
had their $100 investments. They were walking with $1 million check. when
Oh
they
yeah,
sold.
my dad paid off his house. Like everybody did
That's
good.
so
And then we
awesome.
had one big investor, really large investor out of Santa Barbara, who invested he runs a big hedge fund, massive one, and he invested his personal money, and he was like light years ahead of our experience. So he ended up sitting on like an advisory
great.
seat on the board. He was huge for us. His name is Frank Foster. Big shout out to Frank.
That's if I ever took on money from anybody, I'd definitely take someone that could bring something to the table.
He
not
was
just
massive,
you know
yeah.
family that would hand it over. So was that? I'm assuming somewhere near $1 million, $2 million investment. Was that after the company had actually started, or still prior to?
This is all pre.
All of it.
This is a
Wow.
business plan with an idea.
Wow. So he did really well.
Very well. He did very well.
Probably more than he ever did working.
He did very well. He runs $1 billion.
Yeah.
He does well, period. Yeah.
Still, that was a great walk away. So,
Yeah, so it was fun.
So you said 70 million?
So we're around 70, 72. We had a front end, back end deal. I can't remember where it ended up landing.
So after you paid everybody off, you're still walking away with $10-20 million.
We did pretty good. Yeah.
What did you go with that money and do next? We know you didn't stop.
No, I went. So I started investing in commercial real estate right around the brewery. I was investing in storage units. I was investing in a debt fund that was basically lending on commercial real estate.
Who inspired you to do that? Like, where you had to have some inspiration where somebody said, "Hey, I'll show you how to do it."
The financial advisor that my parents connected me with, his brother ran a storage portfolio and a debt fund.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And so he's like, "You want to invest in commercial real estate?" I'm like, sure.
I have a question I want to know if I ever sell JKC,
Go.
Which is the name of my cosmetic company. All of my properties are owned by JKP. Did you own the properties that you were, the 90,000 square foot, you were just leasing? Everything that you guys had was leased at this point? Okay. Because I wonder how that works if they wanted to buy that along with the package price, or if you kept that. Or
you can structure a deal however you want. You can separate it out. They can buy the real estate as well.
Yeah.
What we found is most buyers don't care about the real estate.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of chit-chatting with people just to kind of, see where we're at.
Yeah.
They kind of said the same thing you did. It's like every deal is structured different.
Yeah.
Usually they don't want the real estate. If you want to package it up and sell it at a discount, sometimes they'll take it, but otherwise they just want the business and they could potentially pull out.
Yeah, and be very careful on a back-end deal.
Well, I just like to know that I have mailbox money. If that day ever were to come 5-10 years from now and I sell the business, got these 3 properties that could be, $30,000-$40,000 coming in a month. You know what I mean?
That's the best thing about
so
real
why
estate.
not? Yeah. So why not?
That's right.
Keep
That's
it
right. That's right.
So
that was the brewery. And then, so basically I started investing in storage heavy. I now had money to like really put to work.
But were you finding the properties and buying them, or were you investing in as fun?
No, actually at this point I was investing passively.
Okay.
So my whole philosophy was put all my time and energy into my greatest opportunity. So my greatest opportunity started with skateboarding. I didn't want to dilute my time to like go find deals and manage real estate. I wanted it focused on skating. And then with the brewery, focuses on brewery. There was a deal. I want somebody else doing it. I don't want my time going towards that.
And did you expect that it was going to sell that quickly whenever you guys created this business plan? Did you think this was going to be like your end all, like I was going to retire doing this, or was that your intention all along?
I thought we were most likely going to own it for a while. But we knew we had to sell it to pay investors back, right? If for anyone who's going to raise money, what you're going to see really quick is the first question you're going to get is, how do I get paid back? Mm-hmm. And you have to have a pretty clear path on getting them there. And for us, we were not building like a cash flowing business. We were building something to exit. We just thought it was going to be maybe 10 years. For us, it was like we had to throw out our projections like the first 4 months of business. We were wildly off. So we had just the rare, like that's not normal for business. It's not normal that it explodes and goes gangbusters right away. It was one of those rarities. But having a very successful business at the beginning brings a whole nother onslaught of challenges.
Did you have to sign a non-compete when you sold it?
Yeah.
And who did you sell it to?
Miller Coors. So
you couldn't do this again. You knew this was it? They wait 5 years?
Kind of. My founder stayed in alcohol. He started another, he did like a whole kind of mothership of brands. He did a seltzer, a brewery. So he waited the time to do it. For me, I wasn't comfortable doing it again, actually.
Why?
Because I felt like we had created something special and unique for the industry.
It was hard to compete with that.
Disrupted it,
yeah,
and people were already copying it. And so I felt like if I was going to do it again, I was just going to copy the same thing, and I didn't think it was going to be special.
Yeah.
So I started looking at other industries that I felt replicated the craft beer industry, being behind the 8 ball, behind the times, very whack, and tried to find a way to create the model or use the model that we did with the brewery in a different space. And when I looked at multifamily and storage and commercial real estate, I went, holy crap.
Yeah. So
this is ripe for the taking.
Well, what was the other ideas you had? Because I know this wasn't the only one.
I almost did a shoe company,
what
actually.
Other package? Yeah, because I want to know what path you could have taken.
I really came close to doing a shoe brand. It was for all the wrong reasons. I had it. So DC Shoes was my shoe sponsor.
Yeah.
And I had one of the best selling shoes on the company. And basically due to politics, they kicked me off, ended my contract early, told me to take them to court. They were backed by this huge equity firm. It was sloppy. It was a little gross. And so I was so kind of hurt by that my first company I was going to do was going to be a shoe brand.
I'm going to show them.
I'm going to kill you guys with success, right? All the way to the point where like I had my samples from China. I'm staring at shoes going, we're doing this. And like, thank God I had this kind of, coming to Jesus moment. I am not doing this for the right reason.
Yeah.
And I completely abandoned it and then started the private equity firm.
So when you started the private equity firm, you were first using your own money, or were you getting money from investors?
I basically used my money. I had 3 other partners that I still have today. And so we used our money basically to start it.
Not the same guys from the brewery.
No, different group. And then once we had everything ready to go, we started looking for projects. And then when we found projects, we raised money. First capital, probably the first few projects came from all the investors from St. Archer. We had made so many investors so much money. It was like a great kind of starting point for the next thing.
I mean, this is amazing that you're walking into these industries not really knowing anything about it twice.
I know.
It's worked out.
Now I'm at the point where I have a model that can be replicated. But doing this with Commune was a test run at it. I felt like if I could take what I did in craft beer with no experience and now take it into an industry that is way more complex, way more success. I mean, this is a monster of an industry, right? You're talking about very bright people, very educated people. This was like, if I could pull it off here, I could do anything I want. And now I know the model. It's cool.
Are you developing new or buying existing or all the above?
All of our storage, not all of our storage. The majority of our storage is big box retail that's vacant that we adaptive reuse.
Okay, yeah.
So these are your Walmarts, your Kmarts. We have a handful of storage units that we developed, and then on the multifamily side, everything's development. So we look for distressed product that we can get at a discount, scrape it, and build.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly what he does.
Well,
they buy old Kmarts and in small towns where they build like a super
side.
center.
Yeah, on the storage side, and then on the industrial side, though, we buy distressed and rehab. I very rarely develop from the ground up.
Yeah, it's on multifamily. It's very hard to not develop right now. It's just the numbers don't make sense to do a value add play.
And so that's what I was talking about. Every deal I've ever looked at in the last 10 years, like I couldn't make those numbers work where you just buy something and add some value or raise the rates or I couldn't make them work. I don't know how people were buying.
So do you mean like completely done? Not like you're buying something that's 40 years old.
Yeah, he's developing.
So you mean just buying something that was built 2 years ago?
He's developing. Yeah.
So there's a few ways to do it, right? Like if you're going to buy something brand new, you're going to buy it at a premium. Right? Because there's a lot of risk taking out of it. It's a brand new product. You've got a lot of years before it starts, depreciating. And so you're going to pay a pretty penny. The type of investor that looks for that is somebody who's looking for a 5 to 7% return, right? It's low leverage. They're buying at a 5 cap. It's 5.5 cap. It's institutional grade, right? This is like your, Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
These are your Grant Cardone type of products.
That's what I thought.
Then you have your rehabs, and rehabs can range anywhere from light rehab to deep. So maybe you buy something that needs like some new paint, right? Maybe some of the like landscape out front is kind of like old.
Or you buy a Melrose Place.
Right. So on that end, though, the lighter the rehab, the smaller the rent increase is going to be if that's your strategy. Or you can buy something that's just beat up and destroyed, and you're basically taking it down to the studs. Then the last stage of it is what we do. We scrape the whole thing. We build brand new.
So when you do that, when you're buying something old like that, these people have been in these places for like 10, 15 years. Do you have to wait for all their leases to come up? Or do you come in and just pay them off? Or how does that work?
There's people that will wait for somebody to leave, and as they leave, they'll renovate it and then re-rent it at a higher rate.
Okay.
There's people that will kick
so unit
people
by
out.
unit.
There's people that will buy people out. For us, and this is, I do not mean this from like a moral kind of position. I just personally don't like buying existing product. I don't like either kicking people out, and I don't like changing the unit to something that they'll never be able to get back into.
Yeah.
Zero judgment. I just don't like doing it. What I like doing is finding areas that need housing and building new housing. So I'd rather have the brand new product that's hard to build, that I get a rent increase, but the rent was never set prior.
Well, it also sounds like there's a lot more time into like waiting for leases to expire, kicking people out, doing it one unit at a time versus going in there, and bum rushing the whole thing. It just sounds like build up, you'd be able to get it done in a year and a half.
Yes, but then there's also people that will basically buy something, get everybody out, then sell it to somebody who wants to do a rehab vacant and charge a little bit of a premium. So do anything you want, there's appetite for. It's just hard to get anything to pencil right now. And the interest rates are significantly high. Cap rates haven't moved that much. So you just have no return. So the risk is just not justified, except for in certain areas of development. At least that's our view. That's why
we've always done distressed. And then but it's not multifamily, it's just everything else.
Yeah.
And so we've always bought just complete distress and then added the value that way.
Yeah.
I could never make the numbers work just buying at a 8 cap and raising rates or a 7 cap and stuff. So I don't know, not any in my area anyways. I don't know how it is in the rest of the United
Ours
States.
is different. Like for us, like look, we live in a 4 cap market, 3 or 4 cap market. Like do you know how cap rates work?
Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you look at it as
Which
like
is
a
crazy.
He's broken it
multiple.
down for me 55 times. I'm like, yes, got it.
It's like a multiple on
Yeah,
EBITDA.
he explained. Yeah,
right.
that's exactly how he explained it to me.
For us, like when you're developing, you've got like, let's say your current cap rate. Let's say market cap is a 5 cap.
Yep.
Right. Well, right now your debt or your interest rate is higher than 5%. So you have like a negative cash flow scenario. When you're developing, you're looking at a metric called yield on cost, right? So basically your all-in total cost, what's the yield to that, or like the cap rate you're building to? Mm-hmm. And if you can see a spread, right? So in places or market rate is 5.5, you can build it to 7.5. That's typically enough spread to go, let's build this thing. Right. So we on our development stuff, we're getting it at a discount, and then we're building it and getting a pretty good premium still. But we don't need to sell it right when we finish. Right. We just need to have this thing stabilized. We need it to hit the rents and value that we want if we're going to do a cash out refi.
Well, what's the occupancy you have to be at?
The occupancy you want to be at, you want to be north of 90. Because you want the project to get its highest valuation when you move out of your bridge debt into your long-term debt, right? The property will, in theory, be able to pay the debt service before that.
Are you holding everything, or
we hold?
Okay,
we build and hold.
Yeah, we try.
So y'all aren't turning around and selling any of these things yet.
We have. I just don't like to.
Yeah.
The assets that we've sold have been. I don't know why they offered what they offered us. It still to this day makes no sense.
You're like, I can't turn that down.
You can't.
But some people are looking for an opportunity because they don't want the headache and they don't mind taking the lower rates of return.
Well, like for example, like we had a project that was appraised at like $12 million. Somebody bought it for like 17. That doesn't make sense to me. Don't get that.
Was it a fund or just a?
As a REIT. Yeah.
So somebody's intern made a bad
judgment call. I wasn't asking questions. Really? Okay. Later.
So I'm seeing that you invest in Iowa. You said Connecticut.
We have a storage unit in Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was some other random state.
Our storage is in a lot of random states.
So you're investing all over. And first, you only really know California. Where did you start building?
Well, our multifamily is all California.
Okay.
Our storage is all over the place.
What are you trying to buy per square foot on the big box stuff? Like, I know what we bought in the past, but where are you trying to land to make your numbers work? Do you know?
Well, am I including land or am I not?
Yeah, just
if everything. I'm including land on our last deal, we probably purchased and built for like $150 a foot.
Okay.
Something like that. Without land, maybe.
No. I was talking about the big box stuff you're just buying that's already done.
We don't buy that.
Oh, okay. You're developing. Okay.
No, we buy something like we'll buy a Bed Bath & Beyond that's vacant.
Okay.
And so when we're looking at our numbers, if you're looking at like a price per foot, we've got the model on what it's going to cost to build removing land and what it's going to cost with. Or you can look at it as like $1 per unit. But, where they usually shake out for us, like total cost usually lands somewhere around, let's call it $13 million. It's usually around a $5 million check size on the storage. And then we want to see, I don't know, the last one we looked at, 18, 19 million. No, it was more than that. It was about 22.
For the
$22
for the
million
land
valuation
Bed Bath & Beyond is sitting on?
No,
valuation.
No,
okay.
the land you buy is not too expensive.
I was thinking like whenever Bed Bath & Beyond made the call, hey, we're closing on all the stores. You guys were like on the horn.
Yeah.
We're going to buy them up, sell us 10. We'll package them up, whatever.
Now that I think of this, actually, I have the numbers now I thought of it. The last one we did in Ohio, it was $17 million to build it with land.
Okay.
And then we're looking at about a $23 million value once it's stabilized.
What's the time frame on the multifamily? Like by the time you take down the land and then time of completion, by the time you have it all leased up?
Okay, long, really long.
3 years?
It depends. So there's basically a step prior to that, which is your entitlement. So we buy something that is not ready to go. Can't build it right away. Mm-hmm. That usually takes in California 2, maybe 3 years to get entitled. Right.
Okay, so why do you say that? You can't build it right away. What's the reasoning behind that? It's just
because
not set up with sewage.
You have to, when you're buying, like let's say an industrial building, right? And let's say that industrial building is currently zoned for mixed use. You can, in theory, turn it into mixed use, but you then have to go through the city and get the amount of units approved, the design. Like
you're rezoning it to residential.
Not always rezone. We've had to rezone before, but sometimes we just need to get it entitled so that we can build this building, these units, this square footage. We need basically the units per square foot We have density bonuses, basically like the business plan of the building, and the city has to approve that. And so that's usually 3 years. And then from that point, you have your working drawings, so everything to get to
paying
permits.
all the holding costs.
That's a year, right?
Yeah.
And then once you build it, that's typically 2 years. And then you lease up, let's call it 10 months. So it's a long time. Now, what we do, we go through the entitlements first, and then we typically bring the investor in entitled or right when we're about to get it entitled. We usually bring them in at cost. We don't put like a premium on that. And so on our development deals, investors are usually riding through the first year till we get permits. And then we have, our 20 months to build, and they usually start seeing a return at year 3.
Have you looked at other markets to not where it doesn't have to take that much time to get the entitlement of the land? And
yeah, I have a very contrarian view. I don't want anything to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, too many people go and build where it's easy.
Okay.
And I like building in areas that's difficult, because builders build. Like we're here to build. They build, and they build too much. And so in areas that you see where it's
too oversaturated,
pro building, which is a good thing, they oversaturate, and then they have to give concessions, and then rents come down, and then values come down, and then you see a crash.
But there's a lot of roadblocks, and a lot of people are willing to get through it. If you're persistent as fuck.
You got to hear it though. Like when I talk about investing in California, it is overwhelming. You are crazy.
I know, that's exactly why we wanted to have you here today.
Right.
We're like, this guy invests in California.
Right.
Wow.
And so what we find is, okay, so the state is difficult. It is heavily regulated, and the state is also keeping our competition out for us. Okay. So when we build them, what we see is like record lease up. They lease up like this. We see rent growth. When you look around the nation, you're not seeing that right now. We see high valuations. And so please keep not investing in California.
So what I want to know is, have you purchased something, gone through all the due diligence, and then not get approved, or or only get approved for something that's not profitable for you? Have you been in that situation?
We've been in situations where we've not been able to get it entitled. Yeah. Yep. So it happens actually. Where it happens the most frequent is actually on the storage side.
And so you're closing on the property.
We put it under contract.
So we during those 3 years, that's what I was wondering. So that's what we would do here too. But since it's 3 years,
you can put under an option.
So I didn't know that if it's that long, somebody would let you do that.
You still lose money. You still have the potential of losing money if it doesn't get entitled, because you're not closing. So they're gonna.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense.
Galveston that you held for 8 months. That guy sue you afterwards.
Yeah,
we were looking at some land on the beach, and I didn't realize that every 50 years you lose a part of the beach. It just kind of goes back, and the houses just wash away. And Sean's like, I found 40,000 square foot. It has never been built on. We are buying this property. No one ever mentions anything to him.
It was a
go
personal
through 8
thing.
months, like going through. Yeah, it was like every 2 months the coastal planning commission would meet up. Oh, we forgot about you this time.
Yeah.
Long story short, they're like, yeah, you only have 2,000 square foot buildable area. It's going to be like a tiny home with a fucking sprinkler system and the septic and all that. He's like, no, I'm not buying it. The guy was pissed.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna sue you. Sean's like, well, you should have fucking told me. There's a reason why no one built on this property for 50 years.
Yeah, that's what you put it. Yeah, the contract of the option helps.
So there's no like monthly fees that you're having to pay while you have that option.
You have hard
to
money.
hold it,
we have our kind of soft costs that go into it that we have to pay while we're doing it. But usually, I mean, the option is almost similar. Like when you talk about somebody buying your business, you can set it up however you want. But usually, you're going to agree on the price that you're going to purchase it for. And if you don't, there's a percentage of money that's going to the person.
Yeah, I would just imagine if I was the seller, I would be like, ooh,
it depends, right? Like let's say if you sell it, you're not going to get that much. You don't really want to sell it, but somebody says, I'm going to put this under contract for 3 years. If I don't close, you're going to call the number.
Yeah.
And if I do, you're going to get this number, which is going to be higher than what you'd probably sell it for not entitled.
So you're doing these like in the suburbs of California, or these really urban cities where you're...
we're spread out. So we're really heavy on a market called Ventura. So it's a coastal community, some density, nothing like LA. And we're building stuff like 300 yards from the ocean. So like turning a boatyard into an apartment, turning an abandoned car wash into an apartment. So ocean views.
How many units do these things have?
They range. On the small end, about 32 units is the small end for us. On the high end, we get closer to 100.
What do they start at for these 40 units, 30, 40 units for each unit?
To lease
price. It ranges. Price. It ranges. You'll have some, it'll range from 2,500 to like
that's so
$7,000
for California. That's our small one bedroom is that in Houston now.
Well, you guys your guys' market. When I started seeing Texas prices comparable to California,
I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment when I started my company in 2011. It was a
Yeah.
piece of shit. It was like one of those old Melrose places built in the 60s, 70s. I think I paid $1,050 a month. I think we each paid
Yeah.
about $500 for me and my roommate.
Yeah, 2
That is
bedrooms.
unheard of right now. They've torn all those things
2
down and
bedrooms
they
are-
built
Yeah,
what
after
you're
the
building.
pandemic, it just got
It went through the roof. You pay like $4
insane.
grand a month for a 2-bedroom now.
And it never, I don't think it's going to go back down. I mean, it doesn't look like it anyways here.
It has to significantly correct for it to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
So any other, outside of multifamily and the storage, is there any other type of properties that you invest in?
No, that's it on real estate. We were lending as well, but we stopped.
Like doing hard money loans for other people?
Yeah, bridge debt.
Why did you stop?
I don't like it. I'd rather own. The yield you can get was not exciting to me, and probably the biggest reason, actually more important than that, I didn't think we were the best at it. Like I felt like we were doing something that we were okay at. I don't. That's not for me. Like I want to be doing things that I feel like I'm competing at, and what we're doing on the multifamily side, the storage side, I like that. So we stopped.
and depreciation and everything else. All the
And that's the other thing. Like for me, like you look at like wealth building. Like I want the wealth build, so I want appreciation, I want cash flow, and I want tax help. I want the depreciation. You don't get those with lending. You just get cash flow.
The biggest,
and so I'm
the biggest
missing
help
out
is
on
the
like the thing that I think real estate rules at, which is honestly, it's not even cash flow for me. It's appreciation and depreciation.
Yeah.
You know, I don't love taxes.
So how the hell did you have time for a podcast with all this?
Oh, when I ran for city council and basically added a side hustle on top of my very busy business, I had to get really good at time management. And so we went through like a whole entire restructure of my time. And, you know, within 4 months, I felt like I was kind of like now stabilized on cruise control with way more work involved. And so we just did it again. Like how, if we're going to fit this in, how do we do it? What has to go? And so we just kind of prioritized and did it. But it's people. Like I don't do anything alone. Like I have a lot of people working together for us to accomplish everything we're doing.
And on your podcast, how many people make that happen?
On our podcast, 1, 2, 3, about 5 people.
That's about what we have.
Yeah, your guys' setup and what I experience is very similar to ours.
It's a lot of chaos for me right now, and I nervous breakdown this morning. Sorry, Brian.
I feel you.
Because I mean, I'm trying to still do the whole marketing side of my cosmetic business.
Yep.
I talked about doing a podcast a year ago. I probably would have never gone full force with it, or definitely not the production that Sean's like, you know what, I'm going to do this with you. Let's do this together. And he went balls to the wall like he always does. And then boom, we're here. And we went from 1 day a week. Now he's like, let's do 2 days a week. And I'm like, I can't take on anymore. Because I mean, just like doing 5 or 6 this week, plus trying to manage my other stuff. I had to cut meetings short today. I'm not as productive over there as I should be. And I feel like I'm being pulled in 1,000 different directions. But I think what you said about time management is important and sticking to my guns on that. I know it's really hard to get these people in, and very successful entrepreneurs, you know, they're very limited on their time. But I've said, you know, after we have this baby, because I'm taking August off.
Good.
After we have this baby, not me personally.
Yeah.
As of September, I'm only going to allow this to happen on Mondays and Thursdays. So that way I can have my set days. I film my content on Tuesday. I have my executive meetings on Wednesday. I see clients on Friday and do weddings on Saturdays. Outside of that, it can't budge past that schedule, or otherwise I go back to feeling like chaos. Just everything's everywhere all the time.
That's what I was going to recommend. That's exactly what I do. I have film days, and that's all I do is film that day. I don't like actual business, not getting done. I'm in front of the camera. And so people are busy. Still, you're only filming with me Tuesdays or Thursdays. That's it.
Yep.
Right? And people respect that because, you know, anybody who's busy also looks at you and goes, I know you're busy.
Yeah.
Same way I value my time, I know you value yours.
Yeah.
And so do that. And then I have days where there's no camera. It's like actual business. You know, so just create your framework and stick to it. And then all of a sudden you get your life back. So do that. Seriously. It'll change your life. You don't feel like you're underwater.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm underwater. Today was not the best day. I told Sean this morning, I was like, I'm going to have to sit out on the first and the third one today. I'll do the second one because I know them personally. But I'm glad I did. You were great.
Yeah.
You were great to interview today, and very inspiring with your, you know, putting your all in on, especially on industries you knew absolutely nothing about, and being so successful in such a short period of time is amazing and very inspirational.
We're not gonna push her that hard. She freaked out a little bit this week, but
yeah, it's just because when
we tried to cram a lot of stuff in, so we're not doing anything for about a month and a half, and so this week was a little bit crazy.
Well,
but
prior to this year, 2022, 23, I was trying to keep my fucking shorts on during COVID. Everything was all over the place. I had, you know, the company grew exponentially that year. We did great. And then it kind of stabilized after that. And I was like, okay, I cannot grow if I don't, number one, get more help, which I've done.
Correct.
I let go of the weakest links. hire people that are more challenged and challenge me.
Good.
Versus the other way around, people who really want to be here.
Good.
Having the extra help allowed me to kind of let go, but I was still every day doing something different. I'm an artist. You have two parents that are artists, you know. Every day is a different plan.
Right.
I said, I can't do this anymore. It's making me feel pulled. So setting my schedule up prior to this podcast really gave me more sanity because I knew every single day what I was doing. And not every bride, because I own a bridal business too. Every bride wants special accommodations. Your dad probably knew, like Sunday was his day to rest. When you're up till 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you come home and you have to edit photos to have a sneak peek for the bride the next morning. You're tired of shit on Sundays. You don't want to work. And then every bride wants a special accommodation like, well, my photographer or my venue is only available on Mondays. I can't do it anymore. I have a whole team here. If I'm not available, they can do it, and that's okay.
Right.
It's makeup. It's fine. But setting those boundaries and having that just makes me feel more sane. So we're going to move forward with that podcast too. But I know it's hard to manage so many things unless you're really good with your schedule.
Who's your implementer?
Who's my implementer?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Who's your operator? Who's the COO?
So that is Kimberly Levicki. She's my brain.
Okay. And are you pretty good at letting her do her thing?
Yeah, now I am. I wasn't for a long time.
Yeah.
So she's actually messaged me on Facebook. And I get a lot. I used to get a ton of Facebook weirdos on Facebook and Instagram. I want to help you for free. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. No, you are. I don't know why. That day, she probably caught me on one of those mental health days. and she was like, I want to help you for free. I'm considering, I worked for a big company, big billion-dollar firm. But I've always wanted to start a consulting business. Right. And she goes, let me work for you for 1 year. This will be my project and yours. I'll help you nail down your cost of goods. Before it was, I was walking through the warehouse earlier. Everything was in my head.
Right.
I did not even have a PO system. I had paper invoices taped to the wall back over here.
Gnarly.
When we were down here.
Gnarly.
And when someone would say, hey, when does something come in? I'm like, what's the date on the invoice on the wall? And we go from there. So she helped me get set up with a feature that I already had on my POS system, but I wasn't utilizing. Everything had ETAs and dates to expect. I'd get the little alerts. And we were, before all of that, 500 products in my head. I knew at any time how many I had, how many were coming in. So that helped me tremendously. Yeah. And now I have no brain cells left, but that's where I was. Used to be smart, now I'm dumb. Then she helped me with my cost of goods and really nailing down how much money was the company making, because it was money in, money out, and hope for the best. Right. And I, just like you, stockpiled my cash for a very long time. So I had a good, 6-figure stash. And then at one point I had, $2 to $3 million worth of inventory down here. And I knew that everything was going to be okay if something bad happened before COVID, because I knew I had the inventory to sell in case everything shut down. I was thinking it was going to be a hurricane in my head, but if something bad happened, I had that. But I wasn't organized on the back end. So because of her business side, more than I had with my 4-year business degree, she was able to help get me organized. Then it was me training her for 2 or 3 years to think like me. WWJD, what would Gentry do? We say that still today. And now she's very much in line. I would say she's 95% thinking the same way I would about most things. Like if, a certain category, a brand that we sell isn't doing as well, we have our anniversary sale. Do we buy the same amount that we bought last year that we sold? Or if we're 28% down on that particular brand, do we still stock up that much? Do we bring it down 28%? Do we market that more? So that's kind of what we were talking about this morning. So she runs those kind of things by me when it's big dollar stuff that she's trying to order, or she's new to the manufacturing side. I've kind of turned her loose on that, but she's doing a great job, better job than me, and she's able to have more attention to that. Right. She works from home a couple of days a week, so she doesn't have the distractions. She gets flexibility with her family, so we are in a much better place now than where we were, 3-4 years ago when she started as a company, and her and I as a relationship. Good. But it did take me a really long time to get everyone on the same page, which also took me getting rid of some of the people who were on my team that really felt they were here doing me a favor.
Yeah, that's right.
Because for a long time I had a lot of people working for me that worked for me in the department stores when I was still at Neiman's, and in the very beginning worked for $50 a day to help me promote the brand on my launch, labeling makeup in my house or whatever. But now we have a really good team, and there's more of a level of respect for me and my boundaries, and not everybody going through me and going through the layers of management, which really helps me feel more streamlined.
Good. Yeah, that's right.
But hiring the right people from the very beginning, and that's what I hear from him too at the podcast. 100%. He's like, pay them good from the very beginning, get good people in here that already know what they're doing, very little, hands off getting it started.
That's right.
And it does work better.
That's good to hear. That's awesome. Yeah, it gets fun when you start bringing on people better than you.
I know. I've been pushing her for a while to do that, but she's doing good. She finally started letting go and doing better and better, and has a little bit more sanity.
Hard for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Especially letting go to the checkbook.
Yeah, I hear you.
when everything went through me, I'm still, wiring everything, because I don't want everybody to have full access to my bank, but I'm still, doing all the bank wires, and nobody's really taking credit cards anymore to save the 3%.
Good.
So it's a lot more bank wires than it used to be, which sucks because that's how I traveled for free when everywhere, and hotels and flights were always for free for me. But yeah, huge learning curve, and letting go was hard because I'm like you. I want full control. I want perfection, but it's okay for you to say the stove is hot. So I'm just telling you the stove is hot. And if I walk away from this and you touch the stove and it's hot, I'll tell you I told you so.
Yeah.
But they do learn, and a lot of things, like anytime someone is new here, like, God, there's a lot of rules here.
Yeah.
I'm like, but there's no chaos.
Yeah, that's right.
In any other retail space, it's just nobody ever knows what's going on. Nobody returns phone calls. Nobody returns emails. Just, typical retail. But that's not that way here, and that's really important to me.
Yeah,
So
peaceful walking through.
getting everybody, on the same page as me, and it's working. Got a good team.
Good.
But we want to thank you for coming here today. I know it was a really long route for you to come out here, especially for a busy guy like yourself. But I would say I got a lot of takeaways from you. I know Sean did as well on the real estate side. Very inspiring, especially to hear someone who knows nothing about an industry jumping in and doing exponentially more than you thought you would in less than half the time is really great to hear that story.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is great.
And then if people want to follow your podcast, what is the name of it and where can they find it?
Podcast is Life with Mikey. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. It's just my YouTube, Mikey Taylor. And then if you want to see me on any social media, it's just Mikey Taylor.
And then did I read that you do real estate coaching as well, or no?
Nope. We're just, our company is built for people that want to invest in real estate without doing the work.
But still great for following along for the ride.
Yeah.
So
We do a lot of educational content, but the business is investing.
Okay. We'll put all the links in the description of the video and on the podcast so you guys can find him easily with one click. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Mikey.